we're going to go ahead and get started because I know your time is valuable and it's a minute after. Again, if you've been on our calls before, you know this is Tom Randall from GoldenCare. I've been working here for 27 years, and I've had the real privilege in those 27 years of working with Dennis Reiner really closely, pretty much all those years that I've been here. So we're excited about this short-term care initiative that we're pushing here, and we think that there's some great opportunities for you to help those Americans who need it so badly. So Dennis, we're different locations, so I know sometimes one of us is blaring the speaker and the other one's quiet. So Dennis is on. Dennis, do you want to say any opening words by any chance? Or
no, Tom, hey, this is appreciate all that you do, and this is one of the really fun topics we're going to have that we'll cover today.
Sounds good. You know what? And every one of these calls, for some of you who have been on a bunch of them, I'm sure you're sick of seeing it, but I tell you what, you know that I'm passionate about this business, and this is something that Dennis and I really have taken to heart, and we're doing 30 live webinars in the next 25 days. If you go back to last week, include that. So we really want to help agents go out there and help folks, because the statistics are amazing when you really think about it. 70% of the people out there in America over age 65 are going to need some type of extended care in their lives. And if you look at married couples, those stats, 90% of those married couples will have at least one of them who is going to need some extended care. So that's okay, and if we prepare for it, it's okay. But unfortunately, 90% of Americans have never had a real discussion about how to plan for it. A lot of them are still under the misconception that it's all paid for somewhere else, et cetera. So that's one of the things we want to hit. I always talk about the COVID, how when that came on, the only good thing that probably came of COVID is that it did wake up people a little bit. You can see that last stat there, that's scary. 61% of people saying, at this point, I'd rather die than go to a nursing home if that's what it looks like during COVID. So at the end of the day, what it did is kind of woke people up to say, maybe I should think about this whole planning about my future. If I do need extended care, maybe I want to try to stay at home as long as I can. So that's basically what we're going to talk about today. We know the why. We know that we have to go out and do that. We have so many people with those baby boomers turning a certain age. We know that we need to do it, and we're counting on folks like you who are on this call to really roll up your sleeves a little bit, learn a little bit about this. We're going to try to show you, hopefully today even, how to start the conversation and show you that it's not as difficult as you might think, even if you've never sold short-term care or long-term care or any extended care products in the past. And that's, if you've heard some of our other training, we always talk about the shifting market. Long-term care, that's what GoldenCare has done. We sold over $1 billion worth of long-term care with our sister companies back in the day. And you know what? We've been very successful at it. And it was just a great option for people, and it still is. But unfortunately, what we're seeing now is that long-term care is a great option. But when you get a little bit older and a little bit more gray hair, it becomes really tough to get through the underwriting. So, and some of these products, let's face it, are pretty comprehensive and pretty scary to try to get your arms around as an agent, much less a consumer. So short-term care, we do whole webinars on how short-term care can save this market. And we really are seeing a shifting market that we're really glad to see. So what we're going to talk about today is how to start the short-term conversation. I jumped through that intro fairly quickly because of the fact that Dennis is just going to do, and we'll go back and forth like we always do, but Dennis Reiner, you're in great hands, folks. Dennis has trained probably over 100,000 agents now out there over the years, and he has been just really, really done a good job of trying to simplify this for you and try to show you how easy it is to start the conversation and really move through to successfully help people without changing what you do every day. Because remember, especially for this call, most of the people we're talking to on this call are people that we're saying, we don't want you to throw away your, whatever products you're selling and say, I'm not going to sell Medicare anymore or MAs or whatever you might be selling. At the end of the day, we want you to do what you do every day and just finish up some of these conversations and lead in to find out where they're sitting on the extended care side of it. So with that being said, I think, Dennis, I'll turn it over to you and let you kind of roll with this, and we'll see where we go.
Thanks, Tom. And thanks, everyone, for joining us today. Every time I have the opportunity to go to the GoldenCare office, which is in Minnesota, and the times I've gone there in the winter, I'll always notice, and I'll ask Tom, I'll say, it seems like there's a couple people missing. Where are they? And Tom says, hey, This is ice fishing time. Of course, I've never ice fished in my life, but it's a big sport, and there's a lot of folks in some of those states where they do get cold weather that they like to ice fish. And so part of this understanding of step number one is that just like ice fishing, in order to get to the fish, you have to cut through that ice. And so today, let's talk about, as Tom indicated, some of the simple approaches on how to cut through the ice, and just like getting to the fish, you're getting to your existing clients who you want to have this conversation with. So I would just say, at the end of every interview, or whether that's in person or whether that is remote, you may want to say these words. Bob and Mary, I'll use that as an example. Bob and Mary, before I forget, or oh, by the way, now that we've taken care of your Medicare needs, I want to talk and discuss with you about taking care of the rest of your healthcare coverage. And so this is an opportunity where you can do two things. One, you can determine whether or not you want to proceed if the time allows, or you can simply make an appointment and let them know that after AEP, you're going to come back and that you want to have this conversation, and you get a date on the calendar at that point. If you decide that you're going to proceed, then you can go a little bit further, and you can kind of explain to them in step number one. You might want to say, as you're aware with Medicare, your Part A is free. You get that free. That's your inpatient care for hospital, surgery, lab tests, etc. And I know all of you that understand the Part B, but you explain that also to the client about their Part B premium. Maybe if they're a standard premium, it's $164.90 this year, and what their Part B deductible is. And then you kind of, again, you're just revisiting what they already know, but this is a way by which in step number one, it helps you. You can talk about the Part C, the Medicare Advantage plan that you just enrolled them with. If it was a zero premium, you say it's a zero premium, and you say it was with XYZ carrier. And just say, hey, we just took care of your enrollment for this year. And we also include your Part D, which is your prescription drug benefit. We know it's optional, but we took care of it as well. And it was a nominal premium of blank. Now, officially, there is no Part E with Medicare. But what you're letting the client know is that you use that letter because it represents the word extended care. An extended care plan allows you to get help with expenses that Medicare does not cover. Now you can transition into step two. And remember, again, in step one, it may be that you're just, teeing it up for when you're going to come back and have the rest of that conversation. But if time allows, you can go in and you can then go on to step number two, which is creating the desire. And so as we talk about creating the desire, now you want to explain a little bit further about this, this extended care. I want to give you a phrase, and you may want to write this down. And it's a statement. Your clients don't always buy what they need, but they almost always buy what they want. I want you to think about that. And the things that they want, that's about creating the desire, about getting them to want to add extended care as the other half of their healthcare plan. So here's another tip that you may want to consider. I've found that over the years, and as Tom said, he's very kind. I guess I am a little high mileage. I've been doing this for many, many years, and but I still think I have a little bit of tread left on the tires to continue on. But I've had the good fortune of training, countless thousands over the years, and trying to give them actionable strategies that they can use. And one of the things I found that has been very helpful in training the agents is this particular statement. When you want to introduce something that is new, in this case, it's extended care, you first must compare something that is new to something that they already own and understand. And the reason for that is because at the end of the day, people buy simple things. They buy things they understand. So what do they already own and understand? They don't understand what you just covered with them today in your interview about enrolling them in their Medicare program. And so the easiest way in creating the desire is to let them know that their existing Medicare coverage is what we call your immediate care coverage. It's immediate because this is the coverage that you use day in and day out. This is your healthcare coverage for doctor visits, prescription drugs that you need to fill or refill, hospital stays for surgeries, or even ER visits. And it's important, and why I'm having this conversation with you is that immediate care does not cover extended care. And the sole purpose of an extended care plan is to pick up where Medicare leaves off. Let me repeat that. The whole purpose of an extended care plan is to pick up where Medicare leaves off. And so in talking about this aspect of picking up where it leaves off, when you think about an unplanned and unforeseen event that causes your health to change, this happens, by the way, more than we think. And you may want to say to the client something like this: what circumstances could cause your health to change? Let them answer. Remember, in some previous training, we talked about this rule of 70-30, where 70% of the time you listen and 30% of the time you frame the question. And it's in the framing that you can then drill deeper. But they need to tell you that their health could change. They have to admit it, because remember, a person convinced against their will is of the same opinion still. And so we cannot convince people, and we cannot wait till the end of the interview to come back and we've shown them recommendations and we've done all these things and we want to get them involved, and they really never bought into it because they never would admit to you that anything could happen in their life that would cause their health to change. So what circumstances they may say that could cause their health to change? They could have a fall, they could have a fracture, they could have a hip replacement, a stroke, whatever the circumstances that requires care at home, or unfortunately, it could be care in a facility. You let them know that your extended care plan would pay a cash benefit. And we'll discuss and cover a little bit later in the interview just how they can choose a plan and what coverage amounts would be important for them. You can further explain that without an extended care plan, these costs, depending upon the event and the length of time it takes you to recover, can be very, very expensive. The cost of care has never gone down, it's only gone up. And whether it's care at home, which could average over $4,000 a month, nearly $50,000 a year, or an assisted living or a skilled nursing home facility, these costs can skyrocket, and they could exceed easily $7,000 to $9,000 per month. Yes, that's over $100,000 a year. I can remember when we started in this business, as Tom mentioned, 20 some odd years ago, when we were talking about the cost of care being $30,000 or $40,000 a year. Now, hard to believe that we're talking about the cost of care being over $100,000 per year, and that client would be responsible 100% for those out-of-pocket costs. And unlike their MA plan, where their exposure is limited, they've got their deductible and out-of-pocket costs that are capped. Without an extended care plan, they would have to turn to MOM. This is a little acronym I use, and we have a little fun with it when you're doing this client interview. And MOM stands for My Own Money. This is a good time to ask the client if they've had a personal experience. Remember, this doesn't have to take very long. This whole process can be very, very short, especially with people that you have already a strong relationship with. And if you turn and ask about any experience that they may have had, most people have had an experience. They know a family member that's gone through this. I remember years ago when we were doing a lot of consumer workshops in the early years of long-term care, it was like there wasn't a lot of people that would raise their hands in client seminars that would say they had experiences. But today, it is more common because of the fact that care is pretty prevalent as it relates to how many people have had experience. If they don't have a story, then you can share your story. But remember, it's so important to pull them in and let them share their experience, because they're in essence getting it into their veins about the need for this particular solution. And I would go on in step 2 to say something like this. My clients are very smart, and when I've had these conversations, these discussions with them, like we're having today, Bob and Mary, my clients have quickly figured out, instead of hurting mom, figuratively speaking, they know a more cost-effective strategy is to use another acronym I like to use, which is OPM, other people's money, and say, that's what you're doing right now with your Medicare plan. You're using the insurance company's money and not your own. And the same strategy holds true for an extended care plan. And because you too, like my other clients, are very smart, wouldn't you agree this is the best way to solve this particular problem versus you having to hurt mom and use your own money? Now, having covered this in steps 1 and 2, let me just give you a real application of this, because you may be thinking, really, is this difficult to do? It really isn't. I was in Winston-Salem a week or so back at one of our Integrity Partners events, happened to be at a restaurant at the Winston-Salem Marriott, where I was, where an individual who works for Marriott came over to me, asked me, kind of like checking, hey, how's the service? How are you doing? Long story short, the person said, hey, what are you in town for? And I mentioned I was in town for a conference, and they asked what type of conference, and I indicated that was a conference that dealt with the senior market for seniors and insurance solutions like Medicare. And the person proceeded to ask me, do you know a little bit about Medicare? And I said, yeah, I think I know a little bit about it. And this individual was aging in. She was getting ready to turn 65 and had a couple of Medicare questions. And not to give you the whole story, but in essence, within 5 minutes, I had this individual leaning in because I answered her question, and I proceeded to use everything I just told you in step 2 about the immediate care versus the extended care. And amazingly enough, on the back of her Marriott business card, I got her birthday. Her name was Sheila. Her husband's name was Kenny. Kenny was 71, was going to be turning 72 in just a couple of weeks in September here. And she was going to be turning 65 in November. It is not difficult to actually have this conversation. You can do it. And if I could do this with someone who I just met on a business trip, imagine how much more easy it is for you to do it with someone who you know, who you've had a relationship with, who trusts you, and actually who likes you. So let's go on and talk a little bit about step 3. And again, step 1 and 2 is really important. It lays the foundation. But step 3 cannot be ignored. And Tom, you know, as we get into this health matters, because it's a phrase that I'll let you share that you like to say often, but that these plans don't come with an automatic enrollment, these extended care plans. And so if you'll walk us through, Tom, some of the important tips and key points in step 3, it'll help the individuals on this call to better understand in this 5-step process how important each step is.
You bet. You bet. Thanks, Dennis. Excuse me. Yeah, Dennis, I love that you brought up that, the Part E, just going back a sec to the need and the desire. And I love you brought up the Part E deal. Mark, Dennis and I both got that. We both thought it was really clever. Mike Lynch from our office had kind of said, yeah, I was thinking about Medicare and how Part E would be extended care. And obviously that's tongue in cheek, but it's a great lead in to kind of add to what Dennis was saying when you're developing the need. Because one of the things we've seen, if we're in our traditional trenches over on the long-term care, short-term care side of it with agents who are just going out using lead cards and trying to go out and just sell extended care, you do have to go through and start from scratch and develop that need after the warm-up, et cetera. And you guys have to do that too, because what Dennis said is right, is you have to obviously have them convinced when they're pulling the trigger, not forced into it. But the beauty that you have as Medicare agents, especially, which a lot of you on this call are, is you've already built up a relationship a little bit with that client. So as you're doing what you do every day and you do it well, as you do it the way Dennis said, finishing up the sale and saying, just by the way, I want to make sure you have your extended care taken care of. Those type of questions, and you can do it more like, I don't know a great way to put this, but make it almost more like a must-have as opposed to a need-to-have. And you can save yourself some of those need steps. And I'm not saying shortcut it. You still want to ask the questions and spend your time listening, but it's a great spot to be in. And Medicare agents are going to just swarm and take over this market because of the fact that it is such a relative need. 70% is a huge number when you look at people and say, hey, it's not about when you're going to need care. It's not about if you're going to need care. It's about when you're going to need care. So we want to make sure we get something in place for you. So if you haven't already done it, I really need to make sure we spend a couple minutes and decide what we can do best for you and get you through to the next step. So that's where the Health Matters comes in. Once you develop the need, like Dennis said, or you kind of tell them the logic of saying, we have an emotional sale and a logical sale, and this logically is something you definitely need to have. Then we get into that phrase that Dennis was talking about where you say, at the end of the day, the one thing about extended care is you almost buy these plans more with your health than you do with your checkbook nowadays, because the companies are out there and we have a wide spectrum of different coverages we can offer you, but they vary a little bit based on the underwriting, right? And if it's okay with you, I want to make sure it's okay with you if I ask a little bit of health questions up front to find out where you're going to fit and what I can recommend to you today, if that's okay. And this slide here is we have it in our regular presentation. And I do want to remind you again, jumping around a little bit, that we'll have sales tracks and little bullet points and hot button topics you can hit that you'll get on your site. So that'll help with some what Dennis was talking about today. You don't just have to have it all in memory. But basically what you'd ask when it comes to health is just saying, the first thing I want you to know is a lot of people, boy, you get to our age and pretty soon you're starting to say, I don't think I'm going to qualify. I just want to avoid the subject. So what you want to make sure they know is we have a great spectrum or portfolio of products with this Integrity Short-Term Care Initiative. And you can literally say, first thing, relax, because you know what? I'm pretty sure we can get something to help you out, okay? So don't worry about your health. We just want to find out where you're at. Because it sounds like from what I'm talking to you, you're not sitting in a nursing home right now or assisted living, and you can bathe yourself and dress yourself and do all your activities to daily living yourself, right? Okay, if that's good, then no matter what, we got something that can help you. So if you don't mind, I'm going to go through and ask a little bit deeper questions for you. And now here, this is just one of those things that all of you agents are going to do this a little bit different, and there's no perfect way to do it. But I do want to make sure it's not as hard as you think, because unlike long-term care that we know and love so much here at GoldenCare that has a 34-page application and you're going through every question on health that you can imagine, these extended care plans that we're showing you, even the comprehensive short-term care plans, are not that difficult to get through the health questions, okay? It's not as deep as you have to go. And a lot of agents will do the old-fashioned legal pad, and we obviously have pre-screened forms that we can get you. But just saying, let me ask you, have you had any hospitalizations in the last 5 years? Are you on any major meds, big prescription meds? Jot those down. You don't have to go to med school for this, you guys. We have tools that'll help you out, okay? And obviously, again, like I said on the previous slide, remember to ask permission. Don't just start pounding into, all right, let's find this out. You always listen more and say, what, is it okay? The process sound okay to you if I ask you a couple health questions? Not going to dive into everything you've ever done in the last 40 years, but I just want to find out a little bit more about where you're sitting health-wise. Is that okay? Wait for them, and most people are going to be more than open to it, especially if you built a relationship and rapport with them already, okay? Then we have a couple different ways we can go here. And Dennis, I don't know our time today. I don't think we have time to go into the InstaPivot training, but this is just a screenshot of our InstaPivot tool. It's available to you on our site that we have, our STC initiative site. You'll see a big standout of that, and remind me to go there later before we go, Dennis, so we don't forget to show them that. But the InstaPivot tool is great. Some of you will use it, some won't. And basically what it is all the different products in our short-term care initiative are here. True Freedom, which is a prepaid home care plan. We've got Manhattan Life's home care plan. We've got GTL's home care plan. Here's our Omniflex plan. There's our Wellbe plan. And there's our GTL Recover Cash full. These are the comprehensive short-term care on the right and the home health care only over here. So what we have here with this tool, if you want to use it, is you can go in here and click on this down button, and there's a whole drop-down list that you can type in the start of multiple sclerosis, for example, and it'll immediately show you which of these carriers will take it. And if you go up here to the state, you can click in a state and it'll show you by green. These will turn green if they're available in your state. So it's a real quick way. It's very easy to use once you use it a couple times. And you can go on there and click medications, and we've got all 1,000 medications that Aetna has on there. So you can check to see which carriers will cover you for different types of medications. So if you want to be a student of the game and dive in, we have nice tools like this, that can go in and show you immediately what kind of coverage they're going to get without even looking at the apps. Okay. On the flip side, and Dennis, I don't know if you want to add more to that right here, or if we should just keep rolling. Now I put Dennis to sleep there. He might be on mute.
Oh, sorry. I muted myself for a quick second. This is a great tool, and it may be that, that because if you know your Medicare client's age and all the factors about them, you could do this in advance of your call, just as a little heads up, so that you automatically maybe know some of this information. But it's a great tool, and Tom, hats off to you, because Tom originally developed this tool as part of doing the research, as we were very involved in a lot of the plan design of these various short-term care products that we have. So no, I think it's, as you said, maybe a separate webinar where we could go really in depth, but just know that you can pre-screen.
Yep, and we have training on all this that we'll have available for you, recorded training as well. So everything on the left-hand side, by the way, is every question that any one of these companies would ever ask you on the underwriting. And then you can go up here and find them by keyword or scroll down, but most of the time you'll find it by keyword, and you'll immediately, again, see which policies you can write. Some of you will go with an application. Some of you are going to have favorites, right? Some of you write Wellbe or Medico, and you've written med subs for Medico. And so you might say, you know what, I'm a Medico fan, I'm a Wellbe fan, I want to use that one most of the time. Or you might be a Manhattan Life guy who said, you know what, most of the time I use Manhattan Life if it's available in the state. The number one thing is underwriting first, find out if we can get it. Number two, find out if that product's in that state. And we have maps and color-coded maps and everything you need to see exactly which products are available in any given state. Same way you can do with the InstaPivot. But at the end of the day, and don't worry, I'm not going to read you all this. This is actually just a screenshot of the actual application for Omniflex, for example, Manhattan Life's Omniflex. And here are the knockout questions. And again, it's a lot of reading for the first time when you're drinking out of a fire hose. But once you do this once, I mean, literally, number one, there's AIDS. I know that one from all my other health products. I can recognize that. Do you have any AIDS issues? If I say yes, Omniflex won't be the best choice, but there are a couple other carriers and home health care only plans that we can get. Okay. Same thing here. If any applicant currently eligible for Medicaid or Medicare due to disability prior to age 65, there's other plans that should be able to help you if you can't with Omniflex. And then down here it asks other questions, and these are simple stuff. Activities of daily living we already talked about. Are you receiving home care? And then some of the bigger health conditions down here. One thing about Omniflex is they're hardcore with cancer. So if you have cancer in the last 24 months and you're getting treated for it, aggressively treated, you know what I mean? Not just checking to see if it's coming back. Then at that point, you wouldn't be able to get Omniflex, but you would be able to get Wellbe, for example, is a little bit easier on cancer. So you can go down here, and this is the first knockout questions. And then you have this to see if you get full coverage or not. And all of this is done on the e-app as well. The main one I would ask for is right here to find out, are they going to get knocked out? If they are, then you don't want to waste time talking about that particular product. So some of you will do that and say, you know, I usually just lean towards this if it's available in that state because Omniflex is pretty flexible. Same thing with Wellbe. Wellbe, remember, perfect for couples business. Wellbe has that uninsurable spouse that if you go to our product training, you'll learn about that. It has a little rider for you if one of the spouses is really in tough shape. So this is just the Omni or the Wellaby app. And again, not going to go through and read it all, but it asks you all the different questions on there. And some of you might decide to do it that way. Say, you know what, you definitely have to get this done. We already talked about that. Let me ask you a couple of health questions if that's okay. Then you could go right to the app and decide from that point whether you're going to be able to pivot into that if you didn't want to use the InstaPivot tool. Okay, so the big thing I want to show you, and I'm going to pull back up that InstaPivot, is, and I won't take too much more time, Dan. I want to find the right one though. Not that. Well, here, this is a good spot to show you now too. This is the actual site that we talk about, the Integrity STC site. And if you go down here, there's the InstaPivot tool that you can find. There's all the sales and marketing materials you need. And then for each product, they're in here. And what I wanted to show you, and I'll just do it here instead of on the InstaPivot. Remember, we want to sell the best plan that their health will allow them to have, right? Unless you end up where somebody just wants a little home care plan, that's great too. But most of the time, we're looking to find the best coverage based on their health. So we have these three primary products here that are very strong. Check out their recorded training and check out the live webinars you'll get invites for. They're all strong and they all have their own place, okay? Some of you, again, may pick favorites and just say, I usually sell this one if it's available. That's great too. All that matters, we get something in place to help your clients. If they're not healthy enough to get those plans, great selection down here like we talked about. The home healthcare only plans, which are super wide underwriting net, literally 1 or 2 questions, very, very easy to get. And you have True Freedom over here, which is a prepaid home care plan. Nice thing about this, available in all 50 states. So no matter what, with the bevy of products we have here on this short-term care initiative, you can find coverage for anybody basically, or any state, and just about anybody in those states as well. So Dennis, unless you want to add more to that, I'll just jump back because I know I'm just going a little long there.
No worries, Tom. Yeah, and it's really important on the health side, and you know, this is why so many agents who used to be in the long-term care space transitioned to Medicare, because it got a little tough in the underwriting on long-term care where the declinations just went through the roof. And so the great thing about what Tom just showed you on the extended care offering with the 3 Integrity sponsored plans that we have, Recover Cash with GTL, the Wellaby, and the Manhattan Omniflex, is that we're placing about 90% of the business. You know, this is a far cry than what we're experiencing in the traditional long-term care space today with that average 65-year-old that's either been priced out of it or underwritten out of it. But it's important that you make sure that you do cover that health. And once you do it once or twice, you're going to get the hang of it and you're going to realize just how easy it is. As Tom said, it's not a lengthy application, but setting the stage is really important, because now we're going to talk just and spend a few minutes covering the components of plan design. And there's a couple things that you need to be mindful of. One is that when you're designing a plan, it comes down to a couple different factors. One is your current age, the current age of your client, pardon me. 2 is your current health, which Tom just covered. And 3 is the current budget. So it's important with these plans that you back into what will be affordable. So Tom, let's show them a couple options and let's talk a little bit more about plan design.
Yeah, and I can take this real quick, and I'll try to make this shorter than the underwriting, because the one thing we do want you to know is that everything we're going through training you as agents, it seems more difficult than it really is, because we have the tools available for you. Same with the bullet points as your developing need. We're going to have that available to make it real easy, because what we want to do is just tell your clients the truth. This is something you need to have. It's something I promise you someday you'll thank me for pushing a little bit. We need to make sure we take care of you and get something in place. And one of the things that Dennis talks about a lot when we get into training is that, you know, don't make it too confusing. Don't, number one, talk yourself out of a sale by not listening. And number 2, don't get too deep into it saying, you know, I'm going to show you 45 different plan designs now and show you all the different options we have, because then they're going to need some time to absorb that, and they're going to need some time to definitely try to see if you overthink it, overanalyze it. So again, we're going to do something obviously with your best intent of the client in mind, but you're going to be a professional and you're going to make some recommendations and try to keep it simple. This is definitely not in stone. You don't have to sell these plans on here. We have agents who are embracing this and really going into what they feel is the most important too. And they want to pivot based on exactly what their client says. But one of the ways is the old 2 or 3 option close. And with this one, for example, we had a call center that's been super successful with this product so far. And they're literally using a very simple 3 option close, saying, you know what, we have to take it in place. We call it our classic, premier, and ultimate plans. And basically these are just set up for you, and we can give you an idea based on your age. If you're 64, you know what, then you'd know it's going to be a little bit less than $55, somewhere between $37.20 and $55. So at this point, they're not in the calculator trying to calculate exact rates even. They're just saying, we can get you a really nice $100 a day facility and a $100 a day home care plan. Those both pay, you know, we can get you up and pay for a long period of time. And for the monthly rate, it was as little as $37 for the younger folks, or $55. So if you want a little bit more protection, that we know $100 a day today may not cover the future for facility, for assisted living. We know you're going to have your own income at that point and your own assets to help pay part of it. But we do have a premier plan that will pay $200 per day for both of those. So twice the coverage there. And you can see for that plan, it's $107 a month. And then with the ultimate plan, we have that one where if you want full coverage for your health, you know what, really glad to say we can get you a full-blown $400 a day plan, $300 a day home care. And that thing, we haven't put inflation on it, but we could. But for that, 65, you know, for 65-year-olds, under $200 a year. So very strong plan design. And again, we'll get into, we have a full webinar on plan designs, you guys, that we're going to be able to go in and show you more detail here and how to go about designing these plans. But we do want you to know you can have a simple cheat sheet in front of you if you're on the run with it. You can say, you know what, let me give you an idea, and where's your budget feeling comfortable? And then from there, pivot into the actual quick quotes. And it's very easy to do quick quotes online, and you'll be able to go in there and show your folks a plan design that'll work for them. So this is more to get you in the budget range. Dennis, go ahead and add to that if you'd like.
Yeah, and Tom, I think important again is preparation. You know, preparation for the interview. We know that during the AEP you're going, you're charging hard. You're covering a lot of ground, seeing a lot of people. But you know, if you just take a few extra minutes and prepare and know who it is that you're going to be seeing, so you can have, as Tom said, this cheat sheet. You could even take a step further and just do a couple quotes in advance of that meeting, so you would know. And it's a very simple question you can ask that client, because remember, they might be used to a zero premium with MA. Yes, they're paying some of the, you know, that optional prescription drug Part D benefit. They've got their Part B premium, but it is a situation where you've got to help them to understand, and it all starts again with the budget. And as Tom said, you want to do what's best for the client. But at the end of the day, the client has to have something that fits into that not only meets their needs, but fits into their budget. I like this word usage that I've used. I don't know where, I probably picked it up 30 years ago, but it goes something like this. Multiplying words divide attention, multiplying insurance options divide interest, which really means keep everything simple. As Tom indicated earlier, that is the whole approach. Don't lead with all 3 of the carriers that we have. That will just create indecision. What you need to do is determine which company that you want to lead with, because the underwriting is very similar. As Tom said, there's a couple little nuanced differences, but generally speaking, the underwriting is pretty similar. And so make sure that you can have within that carrier, you can show a couple options, but don't show, 50 options. You want to lead them to that, to that decision making based on their budget. And you may say something like this to kind of establish the bookends. Bob and Mary, as we've talked about this today, it always really comes down to budget. So let me ask you a question. If you're looking at designing a plan for yourself and Mary, are you in the range where that budget has to be under $100 a month per person? Or are you comfortable with a plan that would be in the range of $100 to $200 a month? Let them put the burden back onto them. People will generally tell you, and this is back to what we said earlier about balancing logic and emotion. The emotional decision to take on the plan but the logical decision that has to fit into their budget. So implementation in step 5, as we wrap this webinar up, Tom indicated this earlier. He showed some screenshots of the application process. Some of you may be old school and like doing the paper app. Great. We've got the paper applications available. If you like the e-app, these e-apps are so easy to enroll. You can actually quote and enroll within about 10 to 15 minutes. That's how easy the process is. Tom, I've got a couple other thoughts, but I want to make sure that you weigh in on this implementation process as well.
Yeah, and again, because we're pushing the time limits on it, the key is everything is going to be surprisingly easier than what you think it is, because we have very simple places to get quotes. You can go on, do a quick quote on the Omniflex site or at Manhattan Life. You can do quick quotes on Wellaby, et cetera, and GTL, simple to figure out quotes. And then when you actually do the e-app itself, it's a very simple process as well that you're going to love, for the fact that it's like Omniflex, for example. You need maiden names for the signature for your clients, so they don't have to have a separate text and all these other things. It's a real simple process to go and put it in place. And when we do our plan design, we'll have either lead you to recorded coverages or walk you through how easy it is to go and do that. And we have some webinars coming up on the e-app process as well, which will show you just how simple that is. So go ahead, Dennis.
Yeah, it's simple, it's easy, and it's fast. And what we mean by fast is that we talked about that approval process being that we're placing about 90% of the business. And on the home care, standalone home care plans, it's probably even closer, almost to 98% of the business. And with True Freedom, it's even maybe a tad higher, because as Tom said, there's no underwriting, it's just suitability. But we're talking fast turnaround time. We're not talking about asking for medical records. We're not talking about phone interviews. We're not talking about this idea of really a complicated process. So we're talking 2 to 3 days, generally speaking. Most of the carriers will run a pharmacy check, and basically that's what they're looking for, and looking at the questions that you've said on the application. So, when you're in step 5, also just a couple final tips. When you do enroll that client, make sure also that you go through that process of what we call the cool down, where you kind of review what it is that they just purchased, remind them, especially sometimes that terminology gets lost, where we say short-term care, and someone might think, hey, is this long-term care? So we got to make sure that we cover the vocabulary, because clients can get confused, because we oftentimes use extended care in lieu of saying the word short-term care. And also then talk about the next steps. Let them know what the process is, and how fast it's going to be, so they know it's not going to be weeks and weeks and weeks before they hear whether or not they're accepted. And so, Tom, I think the 5 steps that we've just covered in this whole process of starting the conversation is really, we know it's a work in progress for you if you haven't done it. We do it day in and day out, but I think at the end of the day, the reality is who you have the conversation with. Today we're focused on the Medicare clients. Why you're having the conversation? That's because you want to complete and give them the other half of their healthcare plan that they're not covered by. And when to have it, we already talked about that. And how you do it, we just covered that. And so I think that at the end of the day, and Tom said this earlier, and it's really important, in the long-term care space, we tend to look at long-term care where we focus so much on the need building. Here it is focusing on where you make them feel as though this is almost mandatory. It is a have to have versus a need to have. And I think that as you go through and you just start the process, don't be afraid to, make mistakes. Remember, the client doesn't know all the things that you know. And even if you slip up during the course of your presentation, don't worry, you're going to get better at this if you stay at it. I promise you that the opportunity for you to succeed in this space and to do right by your clients and also do right by yourself, money always becomes a byproduct of the service that we render. And that money will take care of itself if you will take care of your clients. And so, Tom, any other final thoughts before we sign off?
No, I just want to tell you, thanks everybody for getting on. And remember, the next step is up to you no matter what. Contact your marketer. Make sure you get appointed with the carriers that are on this short-term care initiative. Because again, there's so many people out there who are waiting, literally waiting, because nobody dares to have the conversation with them. And it's much easier to do than you think, and you can help people much more than you think. So I really hope that you guys will take that to heart. And I appreciate your time. So, Dennis?
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it. Have a great day.
The next step is yours. Contact your marketer for more information and to start offering short-term care solutions to your clients. And be sure to sign up for our other short-term care Hot Topic webinars.